What's up, everyone? I'm CEO Connolly, and today is the first of 5 videos that I will be doing. I am going to be talking about my books. Today is Friendly Misfortunes, and let's see. So, because of what's going on right now, and of course, we're slowly reopening the country and everything, so things are starting to happen. But I'm trying to find out, or I'm using this time to really think about good marketing ploys um, for my book so that, they can get out there and everything else. And of course, one way that I get my name out there is here on YouTube. So, and there's one thing that I have. Okay, I don't have TV service. Of course, I live in an RV. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know that. Um, so I'm not exactly too sure how bad things really are out there. I kind of live inside this little bubble that basically, I see the memes on Facebook. That's basically what I get. So, um, so I'm not really too sure exactly the whole aspect of it. I do know that in our large city, in the city of Houston here, they're implementing $1,000 fine if you're not wearing a mask in public. That's okay. I got a couple. There was a really sweet lady that I had met at the Scary Dads convention, and I've got her on Facebook, and she was making a couple, and um, she sent me some, and I was like, that was so sweet. I did send her um, the next 2 books in the Affair series because she had the first one, so I went ahead and sent her Family Affair and Fundamental Affair. So I hope she got those. It shows that it was delivered, but it also shows it was delivered at a front porch, and you know how that goes. Anyway, so I tend to watch a lot of true crime, conspiracy theory videos. I always assume that the government is informing us a little bit more and overplaying the virus just to keep the reporters reporting on the virus and not reporting on their illegal activity. Okay, but I digress. Whatever. So, here's the deal. This is the first book in the 5-book series. I'm going to be discussing my books, the backstory on each one of them. And the only reason why I'm doing it in a 5-book series is because when I did this live video on Facebook, it was over an hour long. So I figured I might as well break these up. Now, if you decide to purchase from my website, there is a coupon code, Affair 25 off, no spaces. I will actually put that down below in the description box. So you can get 25% off your entire order. Layla, hi. Hi, Layla. I'm sitting on my couch instead of at my desk. And she insists on sitting right up against me. There she goes. Okay. So I will leave the coupon code down below. All of my books are $10. There are like small little notebooks too, which I didn't grab one to bring one over here, but I'm an idiot. They're about the size. Okay, I have an iPhone 10. They're literally about this size. They've got like a small spiral on the top. So they're really small little notebooks. Those are $2. They only have Friendly Misfortunes and Forbidden Affair on the cover of those notebooks or notepads. I'm going to call them notepads because they're not even notebooks. But I only have those 2 because that was back when I was only focusing on one book every 2 years. And I felt like this was a good way to market, right? So anytime anyone would purchase a book, I'd give them a notepad. So I had a ton of them. I don't have a ton of them anymore. I have just a few. And I made these to kind of market my book and stuff like that. Sometimes I would give them out, like if I went to a restaurant or something like that, I had these postcards that I would advertise my books. And I would take the notepad and put it with the postcard inside the check presenter. Of course, I don't do check presenters anymore, so that's kind of pointless. But, this is way back in the day. But I would focus on one book at a time, so I would take the time to actually take my book cover, crop it out, put it on something, and that's how I would get a lot of this stuff. Now, I'm focusing on several books at a time now, And that's how I was able to get Family Affair published in August. I got Fundamental Affair published in March. I've got Fruitful Affair that should be published by the end of the year. And I'm hoping that if my timeline is correct, I can also have Killer Suburbia done by the end of the year. So that would be 3 books published this year alone, with a 4th one that just came out last year. And I'm hoping to do this, but I don't know exactly how that is. So I was able to format these little notepads. Now, I do have notebooks formatted with all of my book covers, all the books that are published. With all of the books that are published, I do have notebooks that are formatted, but I'm trying to find a place, because I don't have the time to actually cut them down to size, bind them, and all that other stuff. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find a company that I can submit these files. They'll put it on one of their already pre-printed notebooks or, whatever, and then ship it out and stuff like that. The only problem is, though, is that some of these places, for just a regular flimsy notepad with the coil binding on it, they want to charge like $10 to $15 for it. And I do not believe in charging more for a notebook than I would for a book, but I guess that's just me. So anyway, let's get into Friendly Misfortunes. Now, I do have a slight script here that I have written out just to make sure that I stay on track, instead of just kind of going off the top of my head, because then I tend to trail off. And if you've seen any of my videos, if I don't have a script in front of me, I will trail off. So I've got this here. I will be sort of reading from it. Hopefully I stick to it. I don't want to veer off too much. So, Friendly Misfortunes. So I first got the idea for Friendly Misfortunes when my husband had his first deer head mounted. I wondered what would happen if a human was taxidermied. Like, is that a thing? Now, back in 2012, when I researched it, I actually found an article about a guy who would taxidermy your loved ones when they passed away. I'm against having my grandmother waiting for me as I enter the door when I get home, but to each their own. It is, however, illegal in the United States to taxidermy human remains. And this man has since been gone. I can't find him anymore. I was trying to get a name and stuff like that, but I wasn't able to find him. But I did have a bunch of notes and stuff like that about, the taxidermy process. But the fact that it existed in the first place is a little weird. So there was a detailed account of how he preserved the bodies, but most of the information was vague, and probably to keep others from taking it into practice as well. So I continued researching the embalming process and the procedure of autopsies to make sure that I got all of that information correct. And if you can see on the front here, there's actually like a little autopsy here. So you've got half before the autopsy and half after the autopsy with blood everywhere. But most of my information in my research came up with the fact that without blood flow, human skin will continue to decompose despite being embalmed. So even though they put embalming fluid and stuff like that inside the body and stuff it with newspapers and everything else, once the body goes underground, that's it. The body's going to continue to decompose at some point. It will preserve it sort of like a mummy type thing, but the skin will still decompose. It'll get that gray coloring. So I decided to come up with an idea for a long-term embalming process. Okay, now I based the killer off of Jeffrey Dahmer and Dennis Nielsen. They both didn't like being lonely. So once their victim decided to leave, that's when they would, decide that they're going to kill them. And Jeffrey Dahmer, Dennis Nielsen, they had bodies inside their house for long periods of time. They would keep them in their homes. Jeffrey Dahmer was a little bit different, okay? Jeffrey Dahmer was able to figure out how to get them completely incapacitated, but yet still alive. So he had a better way to do things, but it was probably like one of the worst things because they were still in their head, but they couldn't They didn't have any control over their bodies. Now, Dennis Nielsen, on the other hand, he would kill his bodies and then just leave them there to stink up the place. Some of them were buried in his garden. Some of them were buried underneath the floorboards. He had a few of them in his wardrobe. Now, Dennis Nielsen was an idiot, and he was caught because he boiled some of the flesh and attempted to flush it down the toilet, but it got stuck in the tube in the pipes. And a neighbor had called a handyman to come get the clog that was in the pipes, because I guess where he was at, the pipes all work throughout the building. I don't know how that works. He was in the UK. And that's when they found the flesh. They called the cops. He was literally, yeah, it was me. And he let the cops in, and they found body parts in his apartment. So whatever. So there was one thing that I had to change about this guy, though. And it's the fact that Jeffrey Dahmer and Dennis Nielsen were somewhat timid, I guess you could say. They basically kept to themselves, and nobody would have ever suspected them. Now, Jeffrey Dahmer was a little bit more eccentric than Dennis Nielsen, but he did like to keep to himself just a little bit. I wanted to give this guy more of a confident, narcissistic personality rather than a timid narcissist. So I thought about the fact that politicians tend to be pretty narcissist, right? I'm sorry, narcissistic. That's the word I'm looking for. So politicians tend to be pretty narcissistic. So I chose to look into politicians. Now, this book was published in 2014, but I started researching it in 2012, right after Forbidden Affair was published. So finding a narcissist among politicians, that was easy. I watched a few State of the Union addresses, Congress meetings, Senate gatherings, and you can pick out several narcissists in those little things there. So I like to say that this killer is a mash of Jeffrey Dahmer with Dennis Nielsen. So you've got Dennis Nielsen's timid kind of, yeah, I did it, I'm not going to deny it type thing, with Jeffrey Dahmer's like easily pick up, oh, come back to my house type of thing. And then I add a little bit of George W. and Hillary Clinton. And if you've ever seen the two of them speak to the world, then you know which narcissistic tendencies I picked out of both of them. And I don't like talking about politics because I don't trust anyone in office, but I like to use the personalities. Okay, so without giving away any spoilers, I'm going to read a little bit from the book. I'm going to start first with the back of the book. I did have some pages marked off in the book when I did the Facebook Live video. So if you want to see anything that is read on the inside, just go to my Facebook page. It's C.L. Connolly Author on Facebook, and you can actually watch that hour-long video if you want to. But I'm just going to read the back of the book in case you haven't yet. And that's how that's going to go. Okay, so first it starts with the header here. It says, "Keep your friends close." I'm going to get rid of that. Okay. As a boy, his mother leaves and his father dies. As a teen, he is left alone to practically fend for himself. He is lonely and without a loving family. He loves his girlfriend, maybe a little too much. He holds her hostage and ends up arrested. That doesn't stop his need for friends and family. Anjanette Markham and Gwendolyn Welsh had been through a lot together. Gwendolyn's overbearing mother had shoved her into fearing the outside world, and Anjanette was determined to help her live a normal life. While out on a 3-day weekend mini vacation together, the two are ripped apart when Gwendolyn is abducted. The police push the search for her aside when a house is found with taxidermied human remains inside and an extensive graveyard outside for those who didn't preserve well. When the FBI find a connection between Gwendolyn and the serial killer, Anjanette tries everything she can to find her alive before they find her corpse. Inevitably, Anjanette gets sucked into his sick world trying to save her friend. So, basically, it's a creepy guy, like always. who grabs a girl, takes her back. They find out this guy likes to taxidermy people. So her friend is like, no! And she somehow ends up in the, process. This is where it's where I give all of the information, because all of my books are done specifically by the point of view of the victim and not of the killer, except for Killer Suburbia. Killer Suburbia is done from 4 different serial killers. But so all the information is from the victim's point of view. So of course you don't know what he's doing. How does he get his victims to cooperate to taxidermy them, right? And especially with humans, in the one thing, and this is going to sound really creepy and a little scary in my head, but to taxidermy an already dead human is not exactly the best course of action, due to the fact that that means that their skin is already decomposing. So what you want to do is you want to do it with a fresh body. So you kind of want to kill them in the process of taxidermy to make sure that literally, I don't know where my mind goes in these things. And at the time, I have to tell you, I mean, it was a good idea. I literally, every single time I talk about this book, I always think, damn, I want to read that one again. But then I'm scared because I'm the one who wrote it. So in my head, I'm sitting there going, if I read it, I'm going to find parts where I'm like, damn, I could make this so much better. So I'm terrified to read it, but I really want to because the story was so great. But I'm biased. I loved the story because it was mine. I wrote it. And they always tell you, write what you want to read. I'm not going to lie. I would love to reread all of my books, but I'm literally terrified that I would end up editing. And I don't want to do that. I want to read it like a book. I want to read it like, I want to be able to enjoy the story. But because I wrote it, I know I can't. Anyway, that is all. Like I said, I did read some of the inside. Look, I'll read right here, page 18. I'm just going to read just a little bit here. 3 months after Gwendolyn's disappearance, there was still no leads to the whereabouts of Sterling Bigham or Gwen. Every possible lead had been exhausted, and we had returned to a semi-normal life. Not to say that I hadn't been following a few leads of my own. So, that was literally just a paragraph in chapter 18. But I could literally go on, and I did. I went a little longer than I wanted to on the Facebook Live video, but it's because I love the story, and the scene that I had read in there was literally creepy, dude. And yeah, so anywho, that's it. That's all I got today. This was Friendly Misfortunes. Next week is going to be Forbidden Affair, so make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so that you know when the next video comes out. And check out the video on Facebook. You'll get a better reading out of each one of the books. And I will see y'all next week. Bye!